made it wrong, it would be the smallest thing that you think would not make the average person feel inadequate, but you hear it enough and you start thinking, okay, so I'm not smart enough, I don't make the pancakes right, the milk is too cold. Then one time I make the milk too cold when it should have been this, so you're just always on eggshells.
Alright, people. If you want to play, just add up PSN. I'm gonna wait for some people to want to play.
Girls and women are relational in nature, which means that they develop and they thrive in connection with other people. If an individual wants to come in and be that most important relationship in her life, then slowly over time you can use that position to guide her on doing things because I don't want to irritate him, so I'm waiting for a relationship. It's a slow process of isolation, of tailoring this person to what you want her to be and how you want her to act. You don't even believe in your own sense of judgment after a while. And you're trying to figure out, how do I get him back to the good space? Okay, I'll take responsibility for it. I'll just say it's my fault. I'll say yes to whatever it is. I'll apologize. Because if I can just get him back to the good guy, the one that I fell in love with, then I'm in a good space. How do I stop it? How do I get you back? How do I get you back to the guy that asked me to help him to read? When I began working with Robert, I thought he was a genius. I definitely consider him as a mentor. He also became family to me, but he's a controlling person. Yeah. Sparkle has been around from the beginning, from day one. She's his original background vocalist. I don't know if you've ever heard her sing, but she's got an amazing voice. The octave range is like 5, and she would actually...
Port of David Silver is the club name.
For hours. I spent a great amount of time. The process of working on my debut album was crazy.
Hello.
The concept for Be Careful came from controlling Robert. He thought of the concept for the song, and he wanted it to now be a duet instead of just me singing. 2 years ago, didn't know you had no friends. He thought of everything. He thought of the video. He thought of the clothing. He's a visionary, so he thinks of the set. Where do we go now? And how do you want me to walk? And where do I want to see me driving down the street? And how do I flip my hair? He has all that down. So that's him. Robert didn't allow pretty much anyone to speak to me. I'm just walking around, hey, everybody, hey. And then I'm just like, what's going on? Why are these people speaking back? Come to find out, they couldn't speak to me. He wouldn't let them. That's not me, because I'm going to speak to everybody and anybody and whoever I want to speak to. So when I learned that, I would go out of my way to speak to people just to tick him off, because I'm just like, look, you can't tell me what I can and cannot do. I'm not that girl. I'm not that chick. You can't cipher me. But I didn't know that a bomb was coming.
Robert, he loves basketball. Yeah, I think he thinks he's Michael Jordan. We used to go to Michael's house every weekend and play basketball against him and his sons. He was thrilled about Space Jam project. They actually sent Robert footage of Mike doing basketball moves in slow motion. We used to sit up and watch the footage and say, wow, look at him, he just soars. He flies. He just came out with it. I believe I can touch the sky. And just started singing it. That's it, that's it, that's it. I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky.
I Believe I Can Fly is a powerful song.
You know you can miss it that and it says I believe I can touch this guy.
It was everywhere. Kindergarten graduation, high school graduations, I believe I can touch the sky. And in churches.
It was just massive. It was a huge, huge song.
It was a moment of redemption in some people's eyes and ears. People were amazed that this guy, who was very pornographic in other contexts, could walk in and do something spiritual, religious. It was genius.
I wonder, considering that the most famous thing that R. Kelly has ever done was I Believe I Could Fly, did that on some level make people feel comfortable with him as somebody who was an entertainer for children or somebody who was a good guy?
All these pop stars pick their titles, right? I'm the Pied Piper of R&B. The Pied Piper was a children's character who played a flute, I believe, and children would follow him down the road to whatever he was leading them. So he literally picks a metaphor for seducing young children with music.
If you grew up in Chicago, you've heard about R. Kelly. My son used to like Space Jam, so I had to watch I Believe I Could Fly, the opening to Space Jam, about 100 times when my son was 2 years old.
Everything he put out at this point now was just a hit. And not just on the R&B charts. Like, he was now a bona fide pop artist.
He won 3 Grammys that year. And boy, did his head blow up big at that point. He became untouchable in his mind.
R. Kelly was one of those people hiding in plain sight. Society are so in denial of people that we admire that we don't want to see it.
Can you play? Yeah, probably.
My name is Lisa Van Allen. I was 17 years old when I met Rob. A friend of mine, his girlfriend was going to a video shoot. She's an aspiring singer, and he didn't want her to go by herself, so he asked me if I could go with her to the video shoot. It was for Home Alone with him and Keith Murray. Everyone was dancing. It was pretty upbeat. At some point, I guess he saw me, and Rob wants to talk to me. You know, I was kind of surprised when I actually ended up meeting him, because I just thought I'd be the last one he would try to talk to, because I was probably the youngest one there. Rob was sitting there at the pool, and he was being really, really nice, and he asked me how old I was, and I told him I was 17, and he asked me, will your mother let you come to Chicago? I knew he was at least 31, so I thought when I said 17 that he'd be like, you know, like, that was going to be the deal breaker. It wasn't.
Young girls are...
The only reason why the girls agree with it is for the money.
Now, look who I got. Look who...
Huh?
I'm showing interest.
Exactly.
He's charismatic, funny.
If he wasn't like that, they would have just said no.
All around nice guy. But...
They fucking gold diggers.
Like, everybody knows it.
Well, no, what it was they all wanted a
They didn't know it back then.
I'd heard about Rob's reputation about him dating Aaliyah.
Yeah, but you say, yeah, I'll do a couple songs in it, but like, don't control me. If you do, I'll fucking get services when you big man.
He actually had me go on the bus, his tour bus. He wanted me to take off the little dressy clothes I had on. It went into him suggesting sexual acts like oral and sex. I felt like I shouldn't have done that so fast, but at the same time, I didn't want to tell him no. I guess because I was young, pretty much, and I just didn't want to tell him no. Like, I thought he might be upset, or, you know, not like me because I chose not to. I pretty much stayed on the bus in his t-shirt, and in between scenes, he would come back and forth on the bus. We exchanged phone numbers, and he told me to go straight to the car and go straight home.
When I first introduced my niece to Robert, it was at 12 years old. I asked my sister and my brother-in-law to bring her down to the studio to meet him. She was a rapper. She was a dope rapper too. Like, she was Bow Wow status. When Bow Wow was the shit back then, she was that status. I wanted him to do what he was doing for me, for her. Because, like, I saw that hunger, I saw that drive, I saw that
I want to play one up something, bro.
bigger than life, if you will. She was that. She was totally that. And he saw it too. Initially, my niece would come down to the studio with me. She wanted to see the ins and outs of how I was working and just be around the vibe.
Hang on. I want to check scores real quick.
She would sit on the couch. I would go in the booth and do my thing, and I wouldn't take my eyes off her. There were a couple times that I came into the studio while I was still under Rockland that my niece would be in the studio room, and I would walk in like, "What you doing here? Who's here with you?" And she's like, "Oh, I got dropped off. Robert's having a Christmas party or some type of party, and it's gonna be a lot of kids, so we're all gonna stay, at his house and have games." And so then I was just like, okay. I was pissed.
Can I take her out short? Yeah.
I saw her in the studio by herself. My parents were strict. We couldn't stay over or be around nobody's house. We couldn't spend the night at nobody's house if they had boys. You just with Robert being supervised? Okay. I thought I left my niece in good hands, but think of a grown man hanging out with young girls. It just felt like I just shouldn't have introduced them. Something ain't right.
I actually waited about a month before I called him. He was pretty blunt when he get to Chicago. I told my mother the truth about where I wanted to go and who I was going to see. I think she knew that she really couldn't keep me from going because I already had made my mind up that I was going. It just went from first visit, me going back home, the second visit, to pretty much where I just didn't end up leaving. I just would stay. In the beginning, sex happened at the studio a lot. In the studio, he had bedrooms, so you didn't really have to go anywhere. It was pretty exciting for a young girl.
Chicago Tracks was a really, really big place. There's a bedroom in the middle of Studio A, the big room, where Rob had built a big queen-size bed. And, I'm like, wow, I thought that was quite strange.
I felt special. I actually thought that I was his girlfriend. I was living up there at that point. Together all the time. I had no reason to question that we weren't. Life in the studio was kind of boring for the most part. Really couldn't have much interaction other than, I couldn't have much interaction with anyone other than Robert. At that time, I didn't know what a runner was. But